Okay, so hi, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the sixth episode of coaching series. We're going to talk about you know one aspect in coaching which is called the linguistics, and which has amazing significance. And Mangesh, I thought I'll just share with you is that over the last six episodes I've done, and on last five episodes I've talked about coaching fears and coaching. I've talked
Okay.
about life coaching. I've talked about executive coaching. I've talked about business coaching. I've
Mm-hmm.
also talked about how parents can be coaches. So this is the
Mm-hmm.
sixth episode, and in which I'm privileged to invite you. So to
Mm-hmm.
all the team members who are listening to us and people who are listening to us, let me introduce you to Mr. Mangesh, Dr. Mangesh Das.
Thank you.
And Dr. Mangesh Das is a great friend of mine, and he has some amazing records to talk about. He is a motivational trainer. He is an expert, an authority on NLP. So today, when we're going to talk about NLP, you get Mangesh, who is an absolute authority over here. So Mangesh, we're going to talk about that. He has won
Absolutely.
several awards in his career. He was a director of a leading management institute. Yeah. And Mangesh, so you are welcome to this session on, neural dynamics of managerial linguistics.
Thank you.
So we are going to hear a lot about you today. And, however, Mangesh, there's one thing that I want to talk to you. I just want to,
Absolutely.
since you have actually, trained and coached lots of people around, you would have coached of hundreds and thousands of people by now.
Yes.
I'm understating it possibly. You would have tens of thousands of people by now. So, you would have generally seen the communication challenges in organizations, in students.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just tell me, tell the audience on an overall scale, what is the kind of challenges you see in terms of communication that exists in organizations and with students?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
The major thing about communication is called as, we in our NLP language, we call it as meta model violation. The meaning of that is
Yeah.
what a person thinks, which is called as digital, and
Digital.
what a person speaks,
Yeah.
called as analog.
Yeah.
There is often a gap. A person may think more than actually the person can explain or
Abs-
express. And
Mm-hmm.
when it goes,
Mm.
and in organizations, and the context differs.
Yeah.
Suppose organization is talking about, yesterday I was just going through a nice joke. It was saying, so
Mm.
it is between a communication between an employee and his boss. The communication goes like this.
Mm.
So when the pandemic started, the
Uh,
boss says,
uh,
don't focus on work. Health is everything. Look
uh.
after your work.
Okay.
So mid of pandemic, the boss
Uh-huh.
says,
Uh-huh.
you have taken enough rest. Now you must focus on work.
Work.
Now at this moment, this
Mm.
day, the boss says, what pandemic, man? Are
Mm.
you seeing how much we are losing our business? So
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be, you have to now focus on the work.
Mm.
So the person says, which one is most important, whether the health
Uh.
or the business?
Business.
One point of time, he's saying something, now he's saying something. So you know what happens? When the context differs and we say the meta model violation happens, then
Uh-huh.
communication इसको जैसे हम लोग हिंदी में कहते हैं ना communication का वाट लग जाता है.
What
You
like
know,
that? So true, so true.
that's how it happens.
And it also creates confusion, on the minds of the on the listener, particularly like the employees. If the managers are telling, the employees get confused. I don't know what to be doing, what to be done,
Absolutely.
and that's where the big challenge of communication lies.
And
Also,
there,
uh-huh.
yes, and
Yeah, yeah.
there, whatever the work you are doing,
Mm-hmm.
I think coaching plays a big role
Mm-hmm.
because that makes people to actually help and understand
Mm-hmm.
what you are thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Can you organize your thoughts in
Mm-hmm.
a sequence, which is otherwise called as the sequence of images that you want to talk? And then
Mm-hmm.
if you can express,
Mm-hmm.
that will also be expressed in a way that the person with whom you are communicating, the person gets exactly the similar sequence of the images in the head. And when that happens, the communication is
So
awesome.
true. Yeah, it's so true. Actually, so true.
Yeah.
Somewhere down the line, I have also realized that, when I used to work in organizations, so much of gap between, people are so wealth of experience they have, and if they stand in front of people and they want to say a point, my God, everything goes for a toss. you know.
Absolutely.
And so the fact that you raised, Mangesh, that you said, I have so much in my head, but the digital thing is stored in my head, but the analog thing that comes out is so limited, and that gap is so torturous, है ना?
Hmm.
It's so torturous.
Absolutely.
And Mangesh, and this is where possibly the consequence of conversation has an impact on career also.
Absolutely. I completely game with you, Deepak.
Huh. So, and I just wanted to understand in your experience with working in organizations, how do you think generally? How do you think managers are dealing with conversation style? Are working on the conversation so that they come of age. Communication requirements are changing. Communication has become a competency par essential. Nothing can be doubted on that. So what's
I love this question, Deepak, because you and me both have experienced,
Mhm.
because you had worked in corporates, I worked in organizations, and then both of us are now coaches. So we have just experienced it many times, often. Deepak, you must be knowing, before we learnt about neuro-linguistic programming, both of us have done communication training for corporates, isn't it? And have
Absolutely,
done
absolutely.
loads
So,
of communication training, as you are the
ah,
L&D head for
so
your
true.
people. And when we have learned the art and science of communication, we have been again told about the science and art of listening. And
Listening.
when the science and art of listening has been told, I remember the guidelines for listening. Even if you today you go on a search web, or any of the person, they will tell you when you listen, you just use certain paraphrases. Like the person is saying, you say, aha, the person is saying, then you say, oh, what next? Then person is saying, you are summarizing. So the principles, the guiding principles of listening, what I knew before I was exposed to
Mhm.
NLP, that's why I called it as the neural dynamics of
Yeah,
managerial communication. So
yeah.
before I was exposed to NLP, and when I got exposed to NLP, the science of NLP, how I should be listening, there is a remarkable difference in, like it is a new paradigm altogether for me. And I say, earlier I was doing the same. I was paraphrasing when somebody is saying, I was recognizing when somebody is saying, I was acknowledging somebody saying, if somebody is telling half, I was filling up the other half. So like that, exactly book perfect, I was going ahead. And when I learned about NLP, I learned that, this is required. What is more important is you listen to the analogs, because
Absolutely.
every analog is a representation of the digital. And as you know, in our linguistic presupposition, we have learned that there are 9 kind of ideas that comes to head.
Yeah,
So
so true.
now my whole shift in listening shifted from those aspects, okay, carry on from there, or maybe, paraphrasing, maybe completing the sentence from there. It completely just shifted to listen to the linguistic presuppositions. If a person is saying, like, I cannot do anything means I'm worthless, that
Mm,
means the person is using a complex equivalence.
mm,
So I am listening to the linguistic. I say A means B. So we say that means in the head, there is something which is running a complex equivalence. Like that, the 9 linguistic patterns we have heard, we say about existence, possibility, necessity, we say cause and effect, we say complex equivalence, we say awareness, we say time and space, we say adjective and adverbs, and then we say
ordinal.
inclusive, exclusive, or and sequence or ordinal. So
Mm.
now what happens when I'm listening to a client, I'm listening to linguistics. When you listen to the linguistics, it becomes
So
so
true.
powerful to understand what goes in the head. And that's how I have seen, Deepak, as you asked me, if managers, they are listening, or, coaches, they listen to the coaches with this paradigm, or this, dynamics, then there will be a much, much improved version of the communication that will take place.
Actually, when you're so absolutely right on this. Dekho, Mangesh, remember when we were training, remember we have developed a neural pathway of a style of conversation, and then even so, if we have developed, the managers will have also developed by now. Okay.
Yes.
And telling them to shift from that neural pathway, you have this neural pathway. Can you adopt another neural pathway to learn this, to use this? It is quite a challenge. I don't know how many people it really takes huge level of effort for you to shift into the another set of neural pathway. You can't undo what you have done, but you have to redo something that you have to adopt. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Oh,
And that's what I agree with you, because, as you know, any of the learning journey, it goes through 5 levels.
yeah.
First we say, unconscious, unaware. I don't know what I don't know. Then I say I'm consciously I'm aware. What I
Conscious
know.
competence, yeah,
So
conscious
so
incompetence.
incompetence. Then I say, okay, now I'm consciously becoming competent.
Competent,
Then
yeah.
I'm unconsciously become competent, and then I go to the level of master level or the master. So
Masters.
when you go with the 5 levels, every level you will find something you are unlearning or something you are relearning, and this
Yeah,
journey is always an amazing process.
it's an amazing process. Yeah. So I also I remember I wanted to actually share with you this because you were also talking about managers, and managers communicating with you know. I would also like you to share some light on this part. The managers have wealth of information, and the analog that comes out is very limited. There's a lot of DDGs happening. You remember
Yes,
that?
yes, yes.
I want the audience to understand this aspect. Why is so much of thought is not being able to be translated into analog form, and people able to hear that? So, what's the challenge, and what could be done about it? So, and since you're an expert, I'd love to hear that. And the
I'm very
audience.
happy, Deepak, you use this word, my favorite at least. DDG, we said deletion, distortion, and
Distortion, yeah.
generalization. Okay.
Hmm.
You know what, Deepak, what happens?
Yeah.
Again, in NLP, we are talking about which is something called as the hierarchy of ideas. Okay.
Yeah.
And there we say the reality which is there in our head is actually not the true reality which exists outside. Because when I pick up the data or I look at, I sense the data, the information gets and stores in my internal representation in my head. What happens? It is already deleted, it is already distorted, it is already generalized. Depending on my meta programs that is running within me, depending on the language I understand, depending on the memories I am carrying, depending on the values and beliefs I'm carrying, depending on my attitude, depending on the decisions I have taken in my life, and depending on the space, the time, the energy, and the matter that I'm experiencing. That's why when this data which is taken into my head is not real or not true compared to the external reality, similarly, when I speak out the data, it also gets moderated
Yeah.
by this filters. So these filters, it always makes us may not be possible to express exactly our thoughts. That is at the moment we work on that, that works like a magic, and we say, okay, that's what, and that's how we extract data from unconscious, bring to the conscious, then we express.
There is a very interesting presupposition, Mangesh. The map is not the territory.
Absolutely.
If we can just translate it, the words are not your experience.
Absolutely.
The words are not your experience, and that's where the difference comes in. So what you have spoken out is not exactly what you have experienced in life.
Yes.
And you remember Mangesh, when we said that there is a gap, and then we said, how do you? The question arises: how do we bridge that gap? How do we bridge that gap? The gap between what is there in my head and what is coming out, we need to bridge it.
Absolutely.
And that's where, Mangesh, I thought you could just share us on the power of questions. How questions actually help us there.
Wow.
Mm.
Generally, we talk about recovering the questions generally we ask when we are communicating someone. What happens? The questions are basically 3 types. They're basically, we ask 3 questions. Number one, we are asking questions to understand what is the data the person has deleted when the person is asking. The second kind of questions I'm asking, what the person has distorted the data.
Yeah.
And third questions I'm asking to recover what specificity the person has lost because how the person has generalized. That is why, depending on the context, what happens, suppose the person says the world is not good. When the person is saying the world is not good, that means what happens? He's comparing, maybe he has seen some people who are not good and is comparing with the world. So he's bringing something into a format of distortion. Then maybe I will ask, tell me whom all you have seen in the world and you have found the world is not good. Then actually the person will realize, oh my God, I have only seen one person who has misbehaved with me, or maybe 2% who has not behaved properly with me. And for that, I'm making comparison with the whole world. So like that, what he has done by this process, he again brought a generalization that one person not good, and the whole world goes like that. So what he did, he actually brought everything as a quantifier, universal quantifier. So like that, what we are doing actually, when we listen to a person, we find what is at that context more meaningful. Is it that the person's distortion, or is it the person's deletions, or the person's generalization? Depending on that, we ask questions, and the question number of questions are getting improved day by day. Earlier we had 10 sets of questions, then we got about 14 set of questions, then we are further enhancing, and recently I studied somewhere, it was about 19 type of questions are being there. So even more than that, although it is technically 19, but when we communicate, we actually find it can go more than that. So that's how we recover the lost data, and there we are putting an effort to breathe. And generally what happens, it's not that deletion, distortion, and generalization is bad, because there are two aspects. When I want to recover the lost information, I cut through the deletion, distortion, and generalization. Like I can give you an example. When somebody, suppose somebody is smoking, the information comes, or maybe the smoke comes, then there is a filter. The filter absorbs it. Now suppose I want to understand what is absorbed in the filter, then I have to cut the filter, then take it and test it. Similarly, when somebody is communicating something, somebody is deleting the information or distorting a generalization, what happens by questions, I cut those filters to know what is the data which is filtered, which has not come in. Similarly, suppose a person is smoking, I say, okay, use a filter, then what happens, the filter is not allowing the impurities. Similarly, sometimes in communication, we use those filters. When we use those filters, we do not allow the person to think of the impossibilities. That's why we take the impossibilities filtered out, and we create the possibility which is called as a Milton pattern. So when we talk about Milton pattern, knowingly we use filter. Either I use the deletion filter, or I use the distortion filter, or I use a generalized filter. Because when I use filters, it goes great.
Actually, that's where the beauty lies in communication. And actually, Mangesh, when you have shared so many things about a meta model, Metaprograms, DDGs, you're talking about Milton models, and that's where, Mangesh, new professional managers need to shift their communication. They need to be aware of how they are communicating, isn't it, Mangesh?
Absolutely.
That managerial linguistics needs to have a paradigm shift from what they used to do to what they are. And an awareness on the neural aspects, how we communicate, becomes far more important.
I completely agree with you, Deepak. Even you and me, when we last met in Goa, we had discussed the same thing. We told, with so many years of experience, how many? I'm carrying 26. How many years of experience you are carrying?
Similar, 26.
Same, 26. And last time, before 1 year, before pandemic, when we last met in Goa, we are discussing the same thing. We told, man, we have gone through the communication training in the best of the institutes in India.
So true.
And what you didn't know is this neural parts, or the neuro-linguistic parts.
Bingo.
And you and me just got amazed with the power of the neuro-linguistics. We said, my dear friend, would you have known it before 10 years or 15 years? No maybe way. This 26 years of journey is completely would have been much better. So that's what I say. Managers and everyone, not only managers, in a family also, everybody should. That's one of the vision that I'm carrying in my head is NLP in every home. At least I want one person in every home should be NLP trained, so that they can bring a whole atmosphere of wealthy, healthy, and happiness in the home itself.
So true, so true. And this is why when the shift that let me also tell you, Mangesh, it was not an easy shift for us. Shifting from one style of communication which we felt we mastered and we felt so correct about it, and we thought that was 9 on 10 kind of knowledge, to when we came to NLP, then we thought that what we learned was actually 2 on 10. In terms of, and then making 2 to go to 9.
Yeah,
we struggled on the way.
And I still remember when you and me, we had good time with Dr. David in Goa. I mean, Dr. David has told us that, you got to learn NLP to the great extent. I'm very much thankful that NLP India, the way, they have structured the learning pattern, and you and me, all of us are offering the same course, So and we find, I mean, being guided by Dr. David's NLP India, and when we have been doing it, we find it really goes to that element which is required in a person to actually look at, or maybe to work on. So that's how NLP, neuro-linguistic part of this communication is very powerful.
Very powerful. Mangesh, I must really thank you. You know,
So
you
nice of you.
spared
Thank you.
so much time, 25 minutes of your time to share
So
to
nice
our
of you. Thank
viewers,
you.
what it means to be have a new shift in communication, and what it means to be to understand managerial linguistics. What could be the possible content that we are going through? We like talked about meta model, Milton model, Metaprograms, the linguistic patterns that you shared with us, the 9 managerial linguistics
Presuppositions.
presuppositions. Yeah, these are amazing things. And to the viewers, I want to share with you, with the kind of expertise Mangesh has. If you join in the program, this program actually can be very transformative to you. The way you will actually think, communicate. You need a shift. Gone are the days when you used to be working like together. This is the skill, communication skill, or you would always say, I'm perfectly fine in communication. Fine, you were fine. Today, are you fine? Today, are you able to convince people? Today, are you able to inspire people? Today, are you able to build engagement in conversation? Today, are you able to generate conversation? I think, Mangesh, these are major challenges every manager has.
I
And
agree with you, Deepak.
and they have to rise to the occasion, yeah? And they have
Yeah,
to rise.
absolutely.
Wow, Mangesh,
Nice of you. Thank
many,
you.
many thanks, Mangesh.
So nice.
The fact that you came in, we really loved it. And I'm sure the viewers would have also gained a lot on that. And so thank you, Mangesh.
So nice of
You
you.
can,
Thank you. And
we,
have a wonderful day, Deepak. And to all my viewers, have a wonderful learning of NLP. I tell you, it will definitely change your life. All the
thank you
best.
so
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Yeah, Mangesh. So Mangesh, you can sign off. I'll just close the session. Yeah, thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, here we had Mangesh, and Mangesh is a master trainer in NLP. We have all done NLP together with Dr. David in Goa. And that's where we always realize that the power of communication, the power of language, and the power and why linguistics become very important. Remember only one thing, managers, you all are there managers because you have some expertise in terms of business. But what will differentiate you from the rest is going to be your linguistic patterns. So welcome to the program on managerial linguistics. We are having it on 10th and 11th. And join in, experience the magic of communication, and make your let your career float a little more higher. Thank you so much. And so signing off, my dear friends. Just let me see if all right. So thank you so much. Yeah. All right then. Bye bye.